Welcome again to the S.E.M podcast. Jack and Zach are here again, and we are joined today by our friend Dustin Cluff. Dustin, it's so good to have you. What part of the world are you calling from today?
White Mountains of Arizona.
Very nice. Well, Dustin, we appreciate you making time to come on. We typically start out talking about your experience in getting your mission call and your reaction of going to Scotland. So I'll turn the time to you.
Okay, so it's actually neat. I had two close friends that were getting ready to serve their missions. They left probably about a year before I did. So this is probably spring, summer of '99. And one of my friends, close friends, when he got his call, we all went around the room and we were talking about where he was going to go. And he wanted to go to the Dublin, Ireland mission. And I remember thinking, like, I've never heard of anybody guessing that and then getting to go. And when he opened his call, that's where he wanted to go. That's where he ended up going. So it was actually
Wow.
really neat. So fast forward a year later, we went around the room and they asked me where I were going to go. And one of my wrestling coaches, he'd served in, I believe it was in the he was either in Leeds or he was in which mission was there in England that was shut down probably late '90s. I'm trying to remember. It had Wales in it, part of the London mission. Bristol, was it the Bristol mission? It's not there
Bristol
anymore.
mission, I think that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So he served in the Bristol mission. And I remember him telling me, "You're going to go somewhere in the British Isles." And I told people forever that I wanted to go to Europe. I wanted to go, somewhere in Great Britain. And from the time I remember Braveheart coming out in like '95, from the time that was on, I thought Scotland would be the most awesome place to go. So, when they asked me, I wanted to go to Scotland, and when I opened it up, that's where I was going. But when I read my call, one of the guys that was there, his dad served in the Scotland Edinburgh mission, and I said Edinburgh, and he interrupted me right away while I was reading my call, and he said it's Edinburgh, it's not Berg, and he said make sure you don't say borough because it's not Edinburgh, And when I got over there, the Saints let me know right away it was not Edinburgh. So
Very good. That's true. Many have said it and been corrected very quickly. So I can appreciate that. That's awesome. Timeline wise, you said 1999. When did you actually enter the MTC?
So I entered the MTC. I flew out from Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport July 11th at 9:05 in the morning. We flew to Chicago where everybody met up, and then we flew throughout the course of the night. Landed in Manchester on July 12th. So July 12th of 2000 is when I got to the MTC.
So July of 2000. Did you get home July of 2002?
It was June, actually. I ended up going home a moves early because if I would have stayed later, I would have missed. I had a scholarship to play football at Eastern Arizona College down in the Gila Valley. So I had to report for camp, for our summer camp. And talking to President Wilkinson about that, he was not happy when I met with him at my year mark. He wanted me to stay. He even asked me to extend, actually. And I told him, I said, President, I gotta get home. I got a scholarship and I gotta get to there to play football. So
that's pretty cool.
He didn't switch you over to Snow College that time?
No, he would have had me go to Dixie if he could.
That's what I meant, Dixie.
Yeah, because with Tyler and their kids being at Dixie, so they Sister Wilkinson, she always talks about that Dixie salad that she made, and stuff for us when we would eat. So yeah, Rebels.
That's pretty cool. I love it. Mm-hmm. So you get home June of 2002. Tell us about what life's been like for the last 22 years.
Well, it was crazy when I got home because I was home 3 days in June. And, where I live in the White Mountains of Arizona, we have one of the largest ponderosa pine forests in the United States. And 3 days after I got home, we had a fire break out in Sibique, which is about 26 miles, I guess you would say southwest of Show Low. And that merged with another fire that was created by a lady that was lost, that was out in the forest out around the Heber Overgard area on your way to Payson. And those two fires merged together to create one of the biggest, forest fires we'd ever seen. So my family, got evacuated. We ended up going in town where my grandparents lived in an old home on Main Street. And after a day of that, they evacuated all of Show Low, Pine Top Lakeside area to try to clear everybody out because it was a pretty devastating fire. So we got evacuated. We ended up going to St. John's, where my mom's from, and the smoke and ash was so bad. We ended up leaving and went to Las Vegas. We got rooms in the the Boulder Station Casino for like $35 a night. So my mom and dad thought, let's go eat some buffet, stay in the casino and chill out, and hopefully our house doesn't burn down. My parents lived in Linden at the time, which was about 3 or 4 miles outside of Show Low. And again, a wooded area out there. So they thought, if that area was so thick out there, overgrown with trees, that they thought for sure it was going to just burn through there. And miraculously things changed and they were able to save a lot. And, it was a pretty crazy, neat, crazy experience. So.
My gosh, that sounds like a terrible way to come home. I mean, hoping for a celebration and instead you're dealing with life or death. That's crazy.
Yeah. So I had so many companions reach out to me. I don't know if you guys remember Burnell. He was from Oregon. He was reaching out. A bunch of guys reached out and were like, "Hey, do we need to make a road trip to Arizona and help you or whatever?" And I said, "No, we're on the move. So, we could be in one spot and you guys won't find us. So
Yeah,
we actually got that was probably about a 10-day, 12-day ordeal. We finally got home. I got packed and moved down to Thatcher to live down there. Ended up playing that season, and it's funny. We got to Dixie. It was our 8th game of the year. We were playing Dixie, and I got hit in the game and shattered my right collarbone, and had to get surgery. So I missed the rest of the season. Me and my girlfriend at the time, a girl that I'd actually dated in high school, we had reconnected. So after I got hurt, got injured, had surgery, we got engaged just after that. Ended up getting married in January, and then we finished school down there. She graduated in 04, and then I should have graduated in 04, but because of transfer credits, I had to take my diploma a year later. So I ended up graduating from there in 05, even though I had been I'd been at Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff for a year at that point. I didn't get my AA degree until a year later. But I went up there. My wife went into business. I went into education. I wanted to teach and I wanted to coach. I figured out on my mission that I could teach, and I had no desire. When I left, I was gonna come home and work with my dad. My dad was a general contractor, concrete finisher. And even though he didn't want me to do it, that's what I was going to do. And when I got out on my mission and realized that I could teach, that's what I decided I wanted to do. I wanted to coach. And at that time in Arizona, in order to be a head coach, you had to be a teacher. So that was my career path. I didn't know that teachers were going to be paid so lousy. My wife tells my kids all the time, I have 4 kids, and she tells them all, please don't go into education. Go and do something that you love, but make sure you can take care of yourself. Because my wife's had to work quite a bit for us to make ends meet. So she razzles me about that quite often.
That's fair. I mean, she's clearly going out and killing the beast and bringing it home. It sounds like.
Yeah, she actually started nursing school in 2010. She's now a pre and post op nurse working at a surgery center full time. She works 4 or 5 days a week, and does a great job for us. So
good for her. That's awesome. And
yeah.
you said you have 4 kids. What are their ages, genders?
So my oldest is my daughter Ryan. She is 19 and she's currently serving a mission in Kirtland, Ohio. She's out there at the historic sites. And then here, her next move, she's got 6 weeks, and she's going to be heading to her mission in Portland, Oregon. So she left in May. She left in May and went out there and has been out there. She's loving it out there. It's been awesome experience for her. And she's going to go to Portland. I have a son that's a junior in high school. He's 17. His name is Brax. And then I have a 7th grader son. His name's Kason. And then our youngest, Oakley, he is in 4th grade. So we spread them out a little bit.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's the way to do it, from what I understand, the best way to not feel overwhelmed at times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Dustin, take us back now to the mission and start MTC, or even start at, in Edinburgh at the start. Wherever you want to begin, tell us about your experiences as you got into the mission.
Well, I can tell you it started before. So as soon as I got my call, I had a tremendous group of friends that really helped me, get focused. They put me in the mindset that I needed to, get my life in a certain way to where I was, reading scriptures, I was praying on a regular basis. And I'd grown up my whole life knowing that I wanted to serve a mission. But it was amazing how many people were surprised when I decided to go. I was so involved in athletics. I don't think anybody thought I would go. I was that kid that rarely went to mutual because I always had practice. I was a good scout. I had great scout leaders. I had great coaches. I had tremendous examples in my life. So it was something that I wanted to do. When I left to the MTC, though, I can tell you I was not prepared. I was not ready to go serve a mission. I was super fortunate to go into the MTC with the group that I had. Really, really good group of guys and some sisters. President White was at the MTC at that time, and in Chorley, and it was awesome. I loved every minute of the MTC over there. I didn't feel like I was homesick at the time because we were all in the same situation. All of us were missing home. We're all out there learning, and the spirit's so strong there. President and Sister White did a great job, and with all of our devotionals, our instructors, it was fantastic. I didn't find out though, because when I got my call, our mission president it was Clyde, you know.
Yeah.
So I had no idea that it was actually the Wilkinsons until I got into the MTC, and I was psyched when I heard that. Not that I wasn't happy that I was going to have President Sister Clyde, but because I was raised on that movie Tyler, a Real Hero, when I was a young kid about Tyler Wilkinson. So my deacons and priest quorum and teachers quorum advisors were all big sports guys, and so we'd watch that at quite a few devotionals and mutuals and things like that. So as soon as I heard that, I was psyched to go up there and meet the Wilkinsons. They awesome people, awesome experience. And that was a huge experience for me. I mean, I had a lot of non-member friends growing up that would watch that movie with me, and it got a lot of people excited about the church. So that's why I felt like that was such an awesome experience. Got into the MTC in July. We were there and it was fantastic. I remember the last time we were in the temple, we sat in the celestial room for, I don't know, probably an hour. And the matrons, came up to us and were like, "Hey, you guys probably need to go, and we're like, "Well, where we're going, there's no temple. So we want to sit in here." And there's probably about 7 or 8 of us. We did not move. We just sat there and, whispered quietly about how excited we were, because the MTC just lights your heart on fire going out there to teach and, to baptize and things like that. So we were psyched and put us on a train, sent us north to Edinburgh. We got to the mission home, and it was Daylabout and Mulligan that picked us up. And I was impressed with those guys right away. Abe Daylabout was the coolest dude, super personable, really friendly, spiritual, and Mulligan was so sarcastic. Just a go-getter. That dude was on top of us, telling us stuff that we needed to do, and I ate it up right away. They took us up to Pratt's Hill to dedicate our mission, took us to the Royal Mile, walked us around the mission home, the office, everything, and I got to sit in the front seat with those two in the van. And I remember like tripping out because we're on the wrong side of the road, driving in, diving into roundabouts and doing stuff. I was psyched to be there. It was awesome. And they were telling me about the areas that were open, and they mentioned Inverness, and they're like, whoever gets to go to Inverness is going to be a lucky dude because, the zone leader that's there is awesome. The area is the most coveted area in the mission. It's beautiful. You're right up there by Loch Ness. They were just talking about it. And I remember in the MTC, one of our instructors was telling us, you need to start praying for a great trainer right now and a great area that's just going to get you into the work and get you immersed. And so I did that morning, noon, night. I took that to heart and did it. So when they introduced us to our trainers in the areas we were going to be in, I knew I was going to Inverness. I was so excited. And then when they said it was Elder Udi that was going to pick me up and take me up there, I was pumped. It was pretty awesome. So that's where the start was. So that's where I started. I was trained as a zone leader companion.
Your prayers were answered with Rhett Udy. Man, that sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah. He was fantastic. Fantastic. And I again, I haven't talked to him much. We stay in touch through, Facebook and Messenger and some email every now and again. But I just apologize to him all the time because I was such a baby. I was that first 3 months with him. I know because he was right after 18 months and he was excited and ready to work, and he was just getting after it, and he gets this green wuss missionary that comes into the field missing his family, and he was so good to me. He was so patient with me. Great teacher, great missionary, just obedient. Everything that I needed.
Yeah, I can relate to that, as Jack can attest, because he trained me. I mean, I was apologetic every second of the word, to the point where Jack told me to shut my mouth a few times, because you feel very what's the word I'm looking for? Small, I guess, is a good word in that moment in time. Like, you're just this one person figuring it out in a foreign country with a stranger that you're living with, and trying to figure out how to do this stuff. And apologies are the easy way of getting around things sometimes, at least in my opinion. But I can relate to that, Dustin, for sure.
Yeah, I was apologizing all the time, and I remember one of the first experiences, and it wasn't really that he got after me, but we had been fasting. We were teaching some people, and him and Melvin had been working on them. So he let me know right when I got there, like, hey, we've got some serious things to do with some people that we're teaching, and he's like, you need to get on it, and so we were fasting for these people, and we came home on a Sunday afternoon, and we came in to break our fast, and I told you I wasn't prepared, and I just went in and started eating like I hadn't prayed, nothing. He was like, what are you doing? Like I had taken a biscuit and put it right in my mouth. And he was like, get in there right now to our study. And he's like, spit that out. And I spit it out. We went in there and we broke our fast together. And after we broke it, we went in and all we had to break our fast was beans on toast. So it wasn't like some glorious meal, but and don't get me wrong, I was so hungry. Because it was we did a full 24-hour fast. As a kid growing up, we'd fast for breakfast and lunch, and then we'd get home and say family prayer, and we'd eat. So for me, fasting at that time, I mean, I'm 19, and it wasn't a personal thing at that point. And that was the first thing I remember Yudi being like, what are you doing? And we went in and sat down and knelt down and prayed and got after it. And then he taught me about it. And from that point on, like I was strict right to the letter. Every time we needed to fast, we did it. And that was the thing, we were supposed to only fast one day a month, but me and Yudi, we were fasting as much as we could. He really made a mark on that area. The ward was, it was small, but it was super strong. He had a great relationship with a lot of the people. So fantastic. He made such an impression on me as a young missionary because I was a movie guy anyway, but he loved Field of Dreams. And so everything that we did, we were listening to Field of Dreams soundtrack everywhere we went. If it was in the car, it was in the flat, everything. If there was any downtime, we'd sleep at night. So when I got there, we were in a threesome with Elder Olson. And
Okay.
it was because his companion, Elder Frazier, was coming back from a hernia surgery. So he was with us, and Olson was awesome. Like, it was so fun for us three to be together. And I remember I got my bed made earlier that day when we got back, and got my duvet cover put on and got in there. And I remember when I got into bed, it was still, I mean, it's August at that point. It was right there at the beginning of August. So the sun's still not setting. I mean, it's 10:30 and the sun's still up. And I remember getting in my sheets and they were damp, like wet from the humidity. And I pulled my duvet up over my head and I just stuffed my face in my duvet and just cried, thinking I'm on the other side of the planet. That's an awful big pond. I'm away from my parents. My sheets are wet. We're listening to Field of Dreams to go to bed. What is going on? You know? So they introduced me to it right away, and they were so good. They were so patient with me. Looking back on it, like I if it would have been me, I probably would have slapped me. Like that's how bad I was. Because with Elder Udi being a zone leader, I mean, there were so many times we'd have to go into the apartment, go into the flat, and he'd make calls, or we would drive for hours. Our area was ginormous. I mean, we were all the way out to the Isle of Skye, and we got permission to go down and teach a gentleman. His wife was a member. His name was Alexander Duncan Angus Joseph McDonald, but he just went by Alistair McDonald. But that's
Oh
for
my
short.
God.
Yeah. And the reason I remember that is because when we baptized him, Elder Udi baptized him, and he had to say his full name, and I was like, what a name! But it was awesome. But we got permission to go all the way down to almost to Fort William and Speen Bridge, which was out of our area, but they were in our ward boundaries, so they would drive up to Inverness to go to church. Um, and so when we met him, it was actually Udi and Melvin that ran into him. And he told them, he's like, I was born a Catholic, I'll die a Catholic. So we went down and we're teaching him, and we watched so many conference talks with him. I remember specifically we watched Elder Holland's October 99 talk, which was "And High Priest of Good Things to Come," probably still one of the most quoted talks by Elder Holland today. I mean, don't get me wrong, I know he's given a lot of great ones. Him and Elder Irene's talk. Um, and man, we were all three of us were just crying in there. And we ended up committing him to baptism, and it was fantastic. And then we taught another guy, his family, Elder Udi actually talked about it on the podcast. We taught him in our flat, and he actually called me out in the first discussion. It was pretty neat. We were in there, and Elder Udi was great because he would predetermine before the discussion. Now, hey, we would always start with the sixth principle in the first discussion, which was the Holy Ghost, and you would basically teach the investigator what they were about to feel based in the Spirit. So you would teach that principle first, and then we would go to the first principle, God, Jesus Christ, and then prophets, and then go that way. And so it was always competition on who was going to teach what, because we both wanted the first vision. So for him, he would tell me, "Hey, Cluff, you're doing this," and I knew right away if he told me what I was doing, he was going to get the first vision, and then I would do the Book of Mormon. Well, by the time we got to the Book of Mormon, it was my opportunity to testify about it, and I hesitated for just a second to kind of gather my thoughts and think about what I was going to say, and he interrupted me, and he goes, the investigator did, and I want to say his name was Stephen James was his name. And he said, you can't look me in the eyes and tell me that this book is true. And I just put my head down and I just sobbed because I couldn't tell him it was true. And Elder Udi, being the great teacher he just took over the principle, bore testimony. We ended the discussion and Stephen left. And when we got done later that night, he told me not to worry about it, that it was okay. And I remember the washer dryer, it was like a washer dryer combo was in our flat. So it took you forever to do one load of laundry because I had to wash it and then it would dry it. And I'd done my whites, and it was probably after 10:30. We were supposed to be in bed, and I told him I was going to fold my whites real fast as I'm putting them away. So he got into bed, and I went in the next room and I put my whites in the chair and I just dove my head in there and I just prayed and I prayed. And I just asked Heavenly Father, like, please tell me that the Book of Mormon's true. And it was amazing that it was almost like I had this thought come to my mind. Heavenly Father told me, you've always known that the Book of Mormon is true. You just never took time to ask me. And that was huge for me in my life. That thought coming to me that that I was living on borrowed testimony from my parents, my friends, my siblings. And even though I was active and I was involved, I was engaged, I just never gone out and done it for myself and tried to figure it out for myself. So that was a huge testimony builder for me, that I knew that Heavenly Father answered prayers, and that the thought was there in my mind, and then confirmed by the Spirit that the Book of Mormon was true.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think I had a similar experience. Not quite diving my face in my clean laundry, but similar confirmation that, hey, you always knew it was true. It was just a matter of you asking me. So that's really cool, Dustin. I love that.
Mm.
So did Elder Olson stick around for the entirety of the time you were with Elder Udi, or did you guys did you get another companion eventually?
No, I was so we were together, and then as soon as Elder Frazier got back, when he flew back, which we weren't together long, I want to say it was maybe a week, 10 days.
Okay.
It might have been shorter than that. They were up in Thurso. They were up in Thurso, and that's where they ended up going. And so me and Elder Udi were together for 3 months. Fantastic 3 months. And he got a call and went into the office. And again, I could sit and talk about Udi all day because he was so good. Like, he loved baseball. We'd go play catch on P days. I loved that he would go as long as he could without shaving. So if it was Sunday morning, we got up and he had a little stubble, he would keep it Sunday, Monday, and then he would wait till Tuesday night to shave because he wanted to see if his beard was going to come in. He would go as long as he could. And then he would always be on me about my sideburns. That Cluff, it's got to be middle of the ear, man. You better trim those up. So he was on me. And again, it never bothered me. I had so much love and respect for him. I just was like, yes, sir. Like, that's what I'll do. So we would do stuff, and he would do funny little things. So we would keep our change in our film cases from your camera film. Did you guys ever do that?
I had film. Zach had digital.
I had a digital camera, so I did not have that experience, Dustin, but I can appreciate it.
So we would always keep he showed me that because you just have change like crazy. And because I hated change, I would give it away to people on the high street all the time. I'd see somebody sitting there, be like, here's a pound. And I just give it away because I hated change and I wanted blessings so bad. So I was just doing whatever I could. He would get so mad at me for just giving stuff away. Like, why are you giving that away? Say that we could go get a kebab later and you could have that pound and stuff like that. Because we were eating rice and beans on toast, spaghetti bolognese out of a can. He was teaching me, like, save your money, Cluff, save your money, because you'll eat like a king the second half of your mission if you just save your money, So I was doing it. I was into it, And so I went to look at his film case one time, and I opened it up and it was full of lint. And I was like, what is going on? What is in this thing? And he was like, give me that. He put the lid on it. And he's like, don't touch that. I was like, what is it? He's like, I put my belly button lint in there every night when we get home. So he would take his belly button lint out of his belly button, and he would put it in his film thing. And I was like, why? And he was like, I don't know, just started doing it, so I kept doing it. And I was like,
my gosh.
Yeah, I was like, Beauty, that's disgusting. He was like, no, this is cool. Look at this, And so he had it forever. And everybody's got their quirks. I'm sure there's things you can find on me, but I just thought that was so funny that he did that. It's just one of those lovable things that you liked about him because it was just all his personality. He was so awesome. So really good.
Oh my gosh.
So,
hey, Rhett, when you hear that, you've got to message us and let us know that that's true, because you did not divulge that on our conversation with you. Come on, man.
Before I left,
too funny.
Before I left the house, my wife's like, don't be stupid. Don't say anything stupid. And it's those little things, though, that I remember. Like, if you could plug a cord in my head and I could replay the vision of it from my mind, I can still see it plain as day. Him being like, give me that. Like, don't touch that. It was so awesome. So awesome.
Did you shake it first thinking there was coins in it? And you're
well,
like,
that's what
empty?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, maybe he's got coins in there because we all collected the 2 pound coins, but you couldn't fit them in the film case,
Hmm.
because everybody would punch out the inside. And I did that forever. I'd get 2 pound coins, freeze them, punch out the center. I'd mail them home to my family and friends, being like, dude, standing on the shoulders of giants. That was such an awesome thing. And I have it on my keys right now. Can you see it?
There you go.
Wow, there you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I still, my boys have it, I have it all the time. So big thing. But yeah, I was just going to check his coin case and found out it wasn't a coin case. So he's probably going to be mad at me and message me about, Cluff, you're retarded. So
That's what this
funny.
podcast is all about, Dustin.
Yeah.
Is that's long in the past, and it can't be changed. So share the stuff that makes you giggle about people. That's the best.
Oh, I got some stories. I got some stories for you. So end of 3 months, we ended up baptizing at that time Alistair McDonald and Stephen James, and then he gets called into the office to be an assistant to President Wilkinson. And Elder Frazier, that was in Thurso with Elder Olson. After 6 weeks, Elder Olson left and went home, so he was trunking out when he was in Thurso. So after 6 weeks, they got. Did you guys talk to Elder Whistlecraft yet?
No,
You
but
heard
his name has come up. Yes.
Whistlecraft was the man. Still is the man. He's friggin' awesome. But Whistlecraft was up there with Frazier for 6 weeks. So Olson and Udy went in the office at the same time. Olson went in to be, or no, not Olson. Frazier went into the office to be an office elder, and Udy to be an assistant. So I was out 3 months. Whistlecraft was out 6 weeks. So they put us together at Inverness for like 3 or 4 days before moves, because Frazier and Udy went in early. And I remember thinking, like, okay, I'm senior. Whistlecraft was a little older. I think he came out at like 22, right around there. He was a little older. But I mean, he was into cars and he rebuilt little Mini Coopers and stuff, like, like the rice burner that had a muffler and they're flying all over the streets. He's a great driver. He had his license and we had a car in that area. So, and we went around teaching. We were doing Lamb of God referrals like crazy. And so we were together for a couple days. And when I was with Snow later, we ended up teaching this girl that me and Whistlecraft ran into. Her name was Rebecca Williams. We were teaching her. Me and Whistlecraft went over there to do a Lamb of God referral, and she wasn't home. So we decided to knock the area that we were there. In our area book, that area had not been chapped out. So we went in there to chap it out. And we were young and we were stupid and we were just trying to work. So we just went in that area, and we would not take no for an answer from people. We were trying to get in home. We were going to show people that we could teach. And we ran into this guy. He answers the door. He's got this, it's almost like satanic regalia on his shirt. He has an upside down cross on his arm, big fiery red beard. And we did not know what we were getting ourselves into. We were sitting there, we were just talking and talking. And he finally, after being courteous for a little bit, was like, all right, guys, like, you really need to get out of here. And so we leave and we get to the gate from their little front garden that they had. And I go to shut the gate and I'm walking to the next house. And he calls me by my first name. He says, "Hey, Dustin." And I'm like, kind of scared me because I hadn't told him my first name. And he goes, "I'll see you in the war." And I just remember looking at Whistlecraft and I was like, okay. And I just didn't even look back at him and I just walked. And I remember getting home that night and writing in my journal, and there was a million thoughts going through my head on what he meant. Still to this day, I'm assuming Armageddon. I don't know, but it was a trippy experience. But that was me and Whistlecraft. We went around and we were working hard and getting it done. Elder Snow comes in the area, and he is amazing, fantastic, and I had such like reverence for him. It was almost like a scared respect for Snow because he was intelligent, bright, very good teacher. And man, I wanted to win his approval right away. So I, like, first P Day, I'd get up at 4:30. I would write my letters. I would do my laundry, and I thought, you know, he's still sleeping. I'm gonna iron his shirts and I'm gonna shine his shoes. And dude, I ticked him off so bad because I messed up on his shirts. There was a particular way he liked to iron his shirts, and I got I got shoe shine on his laces, and he was fired up. And I remember him being like, "Hey, I appreciate it, but don't touch my stuff." I was like, "Yes, sir." So I didn't do that. I didn't do that again, you know.
Jeez.
But he was the kind of guy where when we would get done with the discussion, we would go out and sit in the car and we would talk about the discussion, and he would ask me how I felt it went, and then he would tell me how it went, and then he would give criticism on how I could improve, and then he would ask me, you know, was there anything I could improve on? And he was on me about word choice from the get-go. Like, you need to quit using words they don't understand. You need to really try harder to get down on their level and help them engage so the spirit can touch them. And he really helped me become a great teacher. Where Udi was super patient with me, I didn't feel like Snow was as patient with me. He honestly, there were some things I probably would have done different, but he honestly, he's emailed me and reached out. He reached out after a year I was at NAU. He emailed me and apologized for just being so hard. And I told him, hey, it helped me so much. Like, I needed it. I needed the tough love. I needed the encouragement. I needed the criticism. I was so successful and talented at stuff growing up that I rarely, um, I guess, had that kind of experience where I was getting coached like that. And so I just ate it up. Did it hurt my feelings at the time? Yeah. Yeah. I was super sulky, and I would go home and I probably wrote some things in my journal I shouldn't have. Um, so in order to help me, he would get me up 30 minutes earlier. He would get me up 30 minutes earlier. He's like, "Hey, we're going to make you a good missionary. You're going to get out of bed 30 minutes earlier." And if I wouldn't get up, he would just take my mattress and he would just dump me. He'd pick up my mattress and just dump me off my bed. And he'd be like, "Go get in the shower, Elder. You have 5 minutes." He'd tell me, he'd limit my time in the shower. 5 minutes. You're ready. We're ready. We're starting at 6:30. We're not getting up at 6:30. We're starting at 6:30. And it was awesome because we went out and we taught and we baptized and we worked our tails off. And he really did. He helped me become at least I thought, a pretty good teacher. Snow was fantastic.
Wow, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So from Elder Snow, did you stick around Inverness, or did you move on from there?
I was with him for 3 months until right after Christmas. I left in January to go to Edinburgh. So I was in Inverness for 6 months, and then I moved to Edinburgh right there. It was moves. It was the second week in January. Went down there right in the middle of winter, and Edinburgh was rough. You'd get those off the Firth, those winds that would come off the Firth and just come down the streets. I swear, it just cut you in half. And so I had I would wear my long sleeve shirt, a sweater, my suit jacket, and then my parka on top with my backpack. And I remember just the moisture. I remember people telling me, like, get water bottles when you get over there and fill them up with hot water and put them under your duvet before you go to bed at night, because that cold and humidity over there just cuts you to the bone. Like it was true. I didn't feel it as bad in Inverness as I did in Edinburgh. Edinburgh was super cold. And I think it's because we were so close to the water right there. But Inverness, it seemed like it was warmer up there for some reason. I don't remember being as cold. I went down and Heslington picked me up. He was awesome. He's living actually down in the Phoenix metro area. I haven't ran into him yet. Super good dude. We worked really hard together. He went senior pretty early. I want to say he was probably 10 months when I got there at 6 months. He was a couple moves ahead of me, but we went out and we lived in the Mentoni Terrace flat about 45 minutes out of our area. So we would have to get on a bus, and it was about 45-minute bus ride with the stops into our area every day. And we were in that 4-man flat with McGinnis and Bailey. And dude, it was a party all the time. It was a party. We were having fun. McGinnis he was hilarious. Have you guys talked to McGinnis yet?
No.
Yeah, he would. Oh, dude, still, I look in my T book, and he would write notes all over the place. Cluff, do your freaking dishes. Cause like I would leave a dish on the table. I'd put a dish in the sink, and he was so clean and cleanly, it'd drive him nuts that if anybody wouldn't do their dishes, and then people would not do their dishes on purpose, and he would blame it on me. They would blame it on me. So it was always Cluff's dishes. So he'd
That's
always get
hilarious.
after me. Yeah. And then we would, Bailey was so funny. We would always, hide in his room under his bed and scare him when he'd come in at night. Bailey was awesome. Great flat. 4-man flat. It actually got sad because they broke up 4-man flats a while after, but that was the only 4-man flat I was ever in at that point. So pretty amazing. We were there. We loved, when I got there, we loved P days. We were all pretty young. McGinnis was the oldest. I think he'd been out a year ahead of us. So he was probably 15, 16 months by the time we got there. So he wanted to kind of chill on P days, and me and Bailey and Heslington, we didn't want to. We wanted to go out. So we would get up super early and go to Asda and shop on our P days, come home, do our companionship study, write our letters, and then we would just take off and want to go play. We'd go all over the place. We were all up and down the road mile. Edinburgh was an awesome place. It was a lot of fun to be there.
That's really cool. So how long were you with Cody?
I was with Heslington only for 6 weeks. We were only together 6 weeks. So after he left, he went to Sterling, and then they made me senior, and I had Elder Burnell. Burnell came in. No, not Burnell. Bushnell. So Bushnell came in, and it was funny because at this time they were getting ready to move us into. They moved us into another flat. We had an older sister. Because were you guys there when they had the older sister serving with the younger sisters? Either of you?
No, we just missed that. It happened like just before we got there.
My group had a combination coming in, older and younger, so it was just before Zach.
Jack, when were you there? When did you go?
04 to 06.
Okay.
So I caught you at EA for a semester before I left.
Oh, there you go. Okay. So we had some awesome young sisters serving with some elderly sisters. And I think in the Edinburgh zone at that time where we had 2 sets of sisters that were with, they had a mixed companionship of an older sister and a younger sister. So if there was any ever problems, and they would fall, it seemed like at Edinburgh, they'd fall all the time, be walking down the sidewalk. And you know how the sidewalks, they just have the little individual pavers, either the 1 foot square, the 2 foot square pavers, and they'd get rain and they'd settle. They'd catch a toe, and man, they just go down like a sack of potatoes, and they'd be out of commission for 2 or 3 days. And so the 2 older sisters would get together at the flat while the 2 younger sisters would go out and work. And we had an older sister. I believe she was widowed at the time. She had a daughter serving in Hawaii, and she had a headache and went and laid down, took some Tylenol and went and laid down to try to get away with her headache. And she had a brain aneurysm and died. And they ended up, it was terrible thing. And she was with an older sister at the time. The 2 younger sisters, they had gone in exchanges to go work together because she wasn't feeling well. And so she'd passed away on the mission, and they ended up taking them the sisters out of that area, and they moved us out of the 4-man flat and put us over in their flat over there. So when Bushnell came in, I believe he came from Glasgow. I totally missed him when he got off the train. So I'm sitting there, I go to a payphone, I call. I've been waiting for probably 2 hours at the station, and I call the assistants, and I'm like, hey, Bushnell's not here. And they're like, well, he's called twice and says you're not there. So I found him. He was so mad at me because I missed him. I didn't recognize him. I don't know how. He just got off the train. I didn't see him. So by the time we got home, he was so mad he wouldn't talk to me. So it was probably the first 24, 48 hours. I mean, he had said 10 words to me. So I mean, he was so upset with me.
Jeez, what a story.
We ended up being together, and I would do so many quirky things, So I was an athlete. I would walk around the apartment, not dressed, and just do funny things, just trying to get him to laugh, because that's kind of the environment I was raised in as an athlete. And dude, he was straight faced, not impressed. Like I would, yeah, I would hide his pens and just try to get him to talk to me just because to ask me where his pen was. And yeah, he was mad at me for a long time, but
Oh my God.
we ended up getting together and we were, I'd been with Udi, Snow, and Heslington, who were awesome workers. Like we were never sleeping in. We were never staying home. We never missed a P day evening going out and working. They were just fantastic workers. So that's all I knew. And if you didn't have a good teaching pool, you either went GQing, street contacting, or you went knocking doors. And so if I didn't know what to do, I knew we needed to go find people. So we went out one day with Bushnell and we were knocking doors for ever. And it came in and rained on us and we were soaking wet, soaking wet. And I just kept knocking doors. And he got so mad after one door. We were at a door approach and somebody was talking to us about something. And he just turned around and left. He just turned around and started walking. So I finished the door approach. They closed the door. I went and had to run to catch up to him. And I remember grabbing him by his arm and to turn him around. And he jerked his arm off me. He was like, "We've been knocking doors for 8 hours and no one is going to let us in. And I'm soaking wet. I'm done. We're going home." And I was like, "Dude, hey, we average a discussion every 100 doors. So we got to knock 100 doors before we get a discussion, and that's kind of what the numbers were. So we just kept knocking and we worked together. I believe he had 13 kids in his family. He had older sisters that were identical twins. He was the third oldest and he would never get letters from home. He was, you could just tell it bothered him. I would get 5 or 6 letters a P day. Um, I bet you every area was in. I got a couple care packages, one probably a month from parents, family, friends. Um, so I mean, he would never get anything. I just felt horrible for him. So I wrote my president's letter saying, "How can I get a hold of his parents? Can I?" Because I'd asked for his parents' address, he wouldn't give it to me. Um, I'd tell president to get a hold of him. I'd finally get in the address and writing his parents, asking them, just please write your son a letter. He needs a letter. And by the time we got to about after, so we were together 3 months, and I thought for sure I was going to leave Edinburgh. We were teaching a family that Heslington, and I'm trying to remember who his companion was at the time that found him. I'm not going to remember his name, but they knocked into this family, and the mom was a member. Her name was Elizabeth Manson, and they were teaching them. And so when Heslington's companion left, we went in and we took it we made it a mission that we were gonna help that family. We were gonna get in there, and Dad was pretty obstinate. He was a long life member of the Church of Scotland, and his mom, didn't want anything to do with the church. So we worked really hard with them. So by the time we got to about 3 months with Elder Bushnell, we still hadn't done anything with that family, and we worked hard. And I was getting ready to move, and calls didn't come, and so we were going to be together 4.5 months. He was one of my longest companionships, and that last moves together, we really gelled. We came together and just, I mean, loved each other. We were great companions. We worked super hard. Ended up baptizing all three girls, Jennifer, Lindsay, and Shelly. Ended up baptizing them, and tried working on the dad. Well, we get 6 weeks later, and I think, okay, I'm going to move. I'm going to leave. I'm going to move. And the moves call comes that Bushnell leaves, and he's going to Paisley. And so I go and I train. Elder Elder Stanworth comes in. Trevor Stanworth. So I train him. He's a green missionary, and he was awesome. His mom had a catering business where she would cook Dutch oven food at like parties, receptions, weddings. She had this little chuck wagon that she'd put on tires that she'd haul around behind her pickup. And I remember him telling me about this, and this was kind of a family thing for them. And he loved Dutch oven food, loved country music. Yeah, I want to say he's Southern Utah boy. He was struggling doing his certification and doing his memorizing, a certification skill award. And so I made a little deal with President. I'm like, President, I'm trying to motivate this kid. Can I give him an hour on P Day to listen to country music if he'll memorize. And he's like, Elder, if he'll memorize, you just do what you need to do, but get him certified. and I was shocked that President did that, because I thought he was going to be like, no, but he was like, yeah, give him an hour. Make sure it's good country music though. And he had Tim McGraw's greatest hits, and he had the Spears and Stripes album from Brooks and Dunn.
Oh,
so,
man, those are good ones.
Yeah, so he memorized like a badge, and after that, man, he got after it. We got him memorized. We got certification skill award. He got into the discussions. A little bit of liberty right there went a long way, because he was missing that. I hadn't heard that Dale Earnhardt had passed away at Daytona, and we're sitting there. I want to say it's July, so I'd been there. I was literally close. I was like 7.5, almost 8 months in Edinburgh, and we're sitting there. I believe it was the 4th of July, and he tells me, I'm sitting there talking about Dale Earnhardt, and he's like, Dale Earnhart's dead. He died in Daytona. And I was like, what? I was blown away by that. I can remember that, sitting there, and we're talking about that and telling me that story. But yeah, I was with Stamworth for 6 weeks, and then I got the call to move to Perth.
Nice. I just looked it up. He's from Delta, Utah.
Delta. He's a rabbit. That's right. He's a rabbit.
That's right.
Yeah. Love Trevor. Trevor was a stud.
That's awesome. So Perth, who are you with there?
So I go up there right away, and Chino had just got done training Elder Weaver, Kevin Weaver from Colorado. Very patriotic kid. He was in the Army National Guard Reserve, I believe, over there. Hardworking kid. Love the mission. We struggled hard in Perth. Perth was rough. I remember the branch was really, really difficult. We were out there teaching as much as we could. Me and Weaver got ambushed by a family of Jehovah's Witnesses. So we were knocking doors, and we thought it was like textbook, like church video experience. This mother-daughter answers the door. They say, oh, well, we can't have you now, but let's schedule a time you can come back. And we leave, and we're like, man, what are the possibilities? This is going to be awesome. We come back, and dude, they are loaded for bear. I mean, they got scriptures out. They've got verses marked. They've got all this stuff set up. And we walk into a full-on ambush. And me and Weaver had no idea what to do. We just sat there and just listened, and they just ripped us up one side and down the other. And then as soon as they got to talking about the prophet Joseph, I had enough. I was like, you know what? I stood up and I said, hey, inside of your home, outside of your home, I'm not going to let you talk about the prophet Joseph Smith like that. I bore testimony, and I just said, good day. And we walked out. And no lie, on the way out, they just begged our pardon, asked us to stay, apologized for the abrasive nature of the conversation. And I said, no, thank you. We appreciate it. We believe that this is true. Joseph Smith was a prophet. The Book of Mormon's true. We're going to be on our way. And we left. And I can remember specifically having companions that were so good at engaging in dialogue. And as soon as it got negative, as soon as it got awkward, or any kind of hint at bashing, it was done. Like, we ended it. It was done. Because I remember being on exchanges one time with a very knowledgeable elder. And he ripped a kid. We were in Inverness on the high street, and he was joining a Catholic seminary. He was going to take his vows and become a priest after he graduated from seminary. And I remember we talked about, some creeds and some things. And when that kid left that day, you could just see in his face that he'd questioned everything that he believed. And more than ever at that time in my life, I just wanted to reach out and tell him, Heavenly Father loves you, and Jesus Christ is your Savior. And that's the thing that's most important. I didn't want that guy to doubt what he had believed, so I just never was going to be that way. And Perth was hard. We did not see any success in Perth. We'd be out knocking doors, and if that, certain religious group was out there ahead of us and they couldn't get in, they'd say, hey, the Mormons are out here. They're coming. Don't answer your door. And it would just lock down the entire area.
Gosh, that's terrible.
It was so hard. And we had in that area though, there were some great members. Bob Boyd, Robert Boyd was his name. We called him Bob Boyd. He was so fantastic to the missionaries. When me and Abby, we went back in May of 2004. We went and stayed with him for a night. Him and his wife and his son, and we were there. They ended up taking us to dinner, and we stayed with them, and it was a great reunion. But they were fantastic. I mean, if we ever needed help, if we needed someone to go with us on a discussion, if we needed service, I mean, if something happened to where we would knock or go by their home, they would want to sit us down and feed us right away. They were fantastic. So awesome area, but it was just full of adversity. It was really difficult. When we were there, we had I had an experience with so the Manson family that I had in Edinburgh. Liz's dad, John Adam, he was getting sick, was really sick, and they didn't think he was going to live much longer. So they got permission from President Wilkinson that I could go down, and I want to say they were in Kirkcaldy. I think it was in Kirkcaldy, and that's where he was living. So just across the Firth of Forth from Edinburgh in Fife. Is Kirkcaldy? Kirkcaldy was by Fife, right?
Yep, yeah. It is. Yep.
Yeah, so right there in that area. So I'm trying to remember. We went and saw him, and he requested that I go in the room with him and speak with him. And he told me that he had loved every time we would teach the girls. He would want to be, when we were there in Edinburgh, he would sit in the other room, and he just wanted to listen, because he said listening to the missionaries always made him feel good, but he never wanted to act on it. He just wanted to hear it because it brought him a lot of peace. And I went in the room with him. He was really sick, and we closed the door, and he told me it was exactly like Thomas S. Monson's experience of, I'm gonna die. I know I'm gonna die. And I open up Alma chapter 40, and I read to him, the verse that talks about where men go, that they're received into a state of paradise, and those souls, being good, would be there, and I butchered that verse, but it was a pretty awesome experience. Well, he ended up passing away, and they wanted me to speak at his funeral, which was going to be held in a Church of Scotland building. And the minister was really upset about having a Mormon missionary speak in this funeral service. And so they called me on a Sunday and asked me to speak. It was going to be the next Friday. And so the next morning, we go on exchanges with the elders, because Perth at that time, we were in the Dundee zone.
That would be right.
Yep. Yeah, we were in the Dundee zone. So we went on exchanges, and I was with Elder Roberto Mallara from Italy. Mm-hmm. He was awesome. He introduced me to Toblerone chocolate, by the way, which is still pretty awesome. If I ever see it, I always buy it. But Toblerone, he would say, Toblerone chocolate. We went on exchanges, and I told him, this was on a Monday. Our district meeting was on a Monday morning. We went on exchanges that day, and I told him that the past couple nights I'd had some really weird experiences. Almost like evil spirit type stuff. And I was really nervous because I felt like I was getting some opposition, because I was going to be speaking in this funeral. And we have a great day. We go up, and we're teaching in Perth, and in this area. There was a lot of inactive members up in this area that we were teaching at the time. And we go home that night, and we made calls and got everything done for the night, because I was the district leader at the time, and we got everything done there. And we go to bed, and I remember I kind of reached that state in my sleep where I was asleep but awake. Like I could remember hearing something around me, and I felt this huge weight like set down on top of my chest. I could feel the mattress just almost swallow me. And in this dream I'm having, I can see myself walking down the street, and this like black silhouette just reaches around me and just starts squeezing the life out of me. And I'm trying to yell and talk, and I can't. And so I just start praying. And as soon as I say amen, I can just feel the hold on me just let go of me. And then I feel something like sit down on my pillow, because I could feel my head like tilt to the left. And I this terrible growl in my ear. And I remember trying to press my ear to my shoulder, because it was like right, I felt the presence like right by my head, and it just faded away. And I started shouting for Elder Malara, and he got up, and we knelt down and started praying. And I mean, it was a pretty scary situation. You know, some stuff in the room got moved. The light went out. You know, like it was a really scary experience. And as soon as he said amen from the prayer, it was calm. It was smooth. Um, he didn't even ask me what happened. He just gave me a hug and held me for a minute. And I called President that night and told him what happened. And he told me, no doubt, just opposition, just, keep doing what you're doing, keep being obedient, keep working hard. And, we went down later that week and spoke at that funeral. And it was, I bore testimony of the prophet Joseph in that funeral, the Book of Mormon, families can be together forever, the typical things we talk about. And it was an awesome experience. The missionaries down there got some referrals from that funeral service. So it was pretty amazing. Testimony builder for sure.
Man, that's quite the experience to share.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Goodness gracious.
I haven't told that to many people. I apologize. I probably shouldn't have shared it, but I felt prompted.
No, I can appreciate that, Dustin, because you're right. Like when you're in a situation like that, it's similar to the faith provoking prayer that Joseph Smith did. And we all know the better understanding of that story and the opposition that came before. But overall, I mean, it's not to say that any of us can have that, especially when you're being invited in a situation to step in front of a congregation of people that don't believe what you believe necessarily. Mm-hmm. And you could truly change some hearts. So I could see how Satan would have an interest in something like that and wanting to try and make you go the other direction. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah. It was amazing. So I was with Weaver for 6 weeks, and then I was with Shumway for 6 weeks in Perth. And it was me, Shumway, and then Bailey and Stroh were together in Perth, and it was a pretty awesome quartet. We had a lot of fun going around and teaching. I mean, we worked super hard and just didn't really see much come of it. And we don't really know why, but it was a difficult area for sure. So we get to, I believe it's late August. It's my third area. I get the call that I'm going to Irvin, and I'm going to go serve with, this is where they brought in the co-zone leaders. So we were going to be there was no more zone leader companion. We were going to be co-zone leaders, and I was with Elder Lindley out of Bingham, Utah. That's the school we went to. It was in Bingham, Utah. And Lindley was a ball. That dude was awesome. It was his last 6 weeks, so he was trunking out, and there was nothing trunky about him at all. Like I think he'd had some companions that he struggled with that. He trunked some guys out, and they didn't work as hard, and he didn't want that. He didn't want that to have that name as a trunky missionary. So we worked. He liked my jacket, my parka that I had. I don't know why, because his was cooler. His was Columbia brand. Mine was an off North Face brand. But he made a deal before he went home. He's like, Cluff, can I? He's like, well, you know what I think it was? I think he had lost a little bit of weight, and his jacket was just big. So he's like, I want to keep this jacket, but it's a little big for me. He's like, do you want to trade me? And I remember his jacket was beautiful. It was like red with like a charcoal gray on it. And I was like, yeah. So we traded jackets. I had the Columbia liner. My sister actually jacked it. I don't know why. She stole it, and I never got it back from her. But it was one of the best liners ever, you know. And we were together. And dude, he was a blast. We worked. We had some awesome experiences together where we went out and we taught. We had a couple that lived right next to us that just loved the missionaries. And the guy's name, I want to say his name was Sandy. And they were a peculiar couple, but I remember we were together. No, we were together. So I was with Lindley. How long? So it was later, but we ended up watching the opening ceremony of the Olympics in February with them. So I was there. You know what? That was wrong. So I left to Edinburgh to go to Perth in August, and then I was there 3 months. So I went down to Irvine in like November. So I was with Lindley right up to Christmas, and then he ended up going home. So I was with Hanson right after Lindley. I was only with Lindley for 6 weeks, and we ended up having a really good time. One of our favorite things that we would do, we would go out on the beach right outside of Irvine. We'd pick up trash for our service. We'd do that one day a week. And Lindley was such a blast. He'd always find a way with the sisters. It was a zone activity where everybody would come. We'd do that once a week. We'd clean up that beach. We'd play baseball or kickball or something on the beach after we would clean for a couple hours and work out there. But yeah, it was a good time.
Cool.
We had a lot of great, saw a lot of baptisms in that area. It was pretty amazing. A lot of work there.
That is cool. So Elder Lindley went home. You had Brock Hansen, and then that was the end of your mission?
No, I ended up staying in Irvine. I was there. So I was with Brock for 3 months. And then I went to Dundee. And Elder Ryan Beatty trunked me out in Dundee. I was in Dundee for 3 months. So 4.5 in Irvine. I was 6 in Edinburgh, 7.5, almost 8 or 6 in Inverness, 7.5 in Edinburgh. And then I was 3 in Perth, 4.5 in Irvine, and then 3 in Dundee. So yeah, pretty awesome time. Irvine was great. Me and Hanson had a lot of fun together. We would go down. There was a lady that was a physically handicapped lady. Her name was Judith. We would go down with her, and I guess missionaries had done this for years. But we would go down, and she loved the Rogers and Hammerstein movies. So we would sit with her for about an hour, watch a Rogers and Hammerstein movie, and she would want us to draw her pictures. So you had to go down and be there at least an hour. You had to watch part of a movie, and you had to draw just like a regular 8.5 by 11 size sheet of paper. And when the first time I met her, you had to give her a nickname. She didn't call you by your last name or elder. So you had to come in with a nickname. And so at the time, I always liked, there was a snowboarder named Turjay Hawkinson. So my name was Turjay, and then Elder Hansen, he was Abercrombie. So it was Turjay and Abercrombie. And she would always tell us when we would come in, and no lie, we'd open the door and she'd be sitting there ready. She'd say, and I'm not trying to make fun of her, but how she would talk, it was so funny. She'd be like, draw me rivers and valleys. And so I thought she was saying like a ballet dancer. So I sit down and I'm trying to draw like a studio with a ballet dancer. And I show it to her and she's like, no, rivers and valleys. And Brock Hansen's like, dude, it's rivers and valleys. She wants a river with a valley. She was so mad at me that I couldn't draw the picture correctly. And I mean, I could tell you right now, we watched Oklahoma with her probably every time. That was her favorite movie. And she loved have you guys seen Oklahoma?
Oh yeah.
You know the Judd Fry scene where poor Judd Fry is dead, where they're singing in the smokehouse and they're talking. She loved that. and again, she made me love it. We listened to it so many times. I play it for my sons when we've been doing stuff. Like if we're doing house cleaning and that it's on my playlist, Brax will be like, "Dad, what the heck are you listening to? This is the cheesiest stuff." And I'm like, "Well, I had an
Oh my
experience, and
gosh.
I just love it. You know, poor Judd Fry is dead, and she loved that scene from that movie. So we we did that. We had some great elders down there at that time. You know, Fuller Root was down there in Ayr, um, south of us. You know, even though we were in Irvine, I never accepted that we were Port Glasgow. You know, being that close to Paisley in the Paisley zone, because my whole thing was if you got sent to the Triangle, you never got out. So many missionaries went to the Triangle and never got out, and I was so lucky to avoid the Triangle because I had um, so many companions that had been in for so long and never got out. And yeah, like Elder Cotter. Cotter was in there for so long. He was in Motherwell and Glasgow. I mean, I think Cotter served in Easterhouse, which was such a rough area. I mean, everybody heard stories about Easterhouse. So even though we were in Irvine and we were in the Paisley zone, I never accepted that I was Port Glasgow. I was not. I was south of Glasgow. So that was kind of, and we didn't run into any issues there. Um, with the kids. Did you guys ever run into problems with the kids, with the Neds? Did you guys call them Neds?
Oh, we call them Neds. Jack and
Yeah.
I are
So
Jack and I are both taller individuals, and I think that had something to do with it. Like they kind of left the bigger guys that didn't want to talk to them alone. At least that was my experience. But
yeah.
yes, I was going to ask you. You must have never gone to Saltcoats because that's what we heard was a pretty rough area down in the Irvin ward.
Well, and that was the thing that's funny is that now that you mention that, so when I was in Edinburgh and they moved us into that other flat, we were right by Broomhouse in Edinburgh. And Edinburgh had some rough areas. Like Wester Hales was a really rough area, and we would work that place all the time and didn't have any situations. So in our area book, we had wrote, don't go into Broomhouse. It's rough. And I can't remember who was with Elder Rackham at the time, but right after I left and went to Perth, Rackham and his companion, they went in to try to open Broomhouse back up. And man, they got beat up pretty bad. His companion um, actually had to get surgery on his head. I think they caved in his eye socket and fractured his skull. Beat him up pretty bad. And I whenever that was in the area book, we were always told that we couldn't go back in there unless you were cleared by the president or the assistants came down and checked it out, you know, because it had been chapped out, but they had to have so many bad uh, circumstances in that area with the kids in there. Me and Heslington, actually, it's funny. We had a situation to where we were trying to get to a guy to teach him, and we were going underneath a carriageway in this tunnel. And there was a group of kids that were drinking. They had 10-inch lager in bottles. Remember how they'd sell them in the box?
Oh yeah.
And they were drinking. And when they were done, they were just pounding that lager and they're throwing the bottles on the ground. And there's probably 10 or 12 of them at the mouth of this tunnel to go into the carriageway to get up to the other side of town. And I look at Heslington and I'm like, dude, we got to go around. And he's like, we're already late. Just don't look at them. Don't make eye contact. We'll walk right past them. They won't even see us. And I'm like, okay. So we walk and we get through the tunnel and we're going to the other side. And there's a street performer down there playing a guitar. And so you can hear the cars overhead rushing across. It's really, you know, the wind's blowing over the passage. So you can hear that wind gust through there. And I had this thought to turn around, and this kid runs up to us and he breaks this bottle and he shoves it in my face, and then he threatens Heslington with it. And we're sitting there and we're talking to him. And while we're talking, the group comes from that same end of the tunnel that we just come through. And we're talking to them and we're calming them down. Well, they back us up to this stairway to go up to the street level. And we don't notice this kid walk down behind us. And he comes up and gets right to my back quarter, I guess you could say. And he lights me up with a right hand, just hits me right behind the chin, right underneath the ear. And by that point, I'd been in a couple fights in my life, so I knew the adrenaline knee, like the weak in the knee feeling, you know, like if he'd have hit me just right, he probably would have knocked me out. He hit me right in the jaw. I didn't even see him. And so I step up on the stair like 2 steps, and he walks around the semicircle, and Heslington's standing behind me. And the kid like parts the semicircle, and he walks up like he's gonna throw another punch at me, and I grab the railing and I kick him right square in the face with my Doc Martin shoe. I boot him right in the face, and I turn around to run because the guys catch the kid, and I turn around and Heslington's gone. Like he's already running up the street, up the stairs. So he's running up the steps, and on the other side, it's kind of like handicapped accessible. It's like stairs with like, where you could push a wheelchair up. We get up to the street level, and we're running the wrong way away from our appointment, by the way. And they're chasing us down the road, and we're sitting there, and I look at Heslington. I mean, it's the middle of February. It's cold. And I look at Heslington, and I was like, what do you want to do? And he's like, let's just stop and fight them, So we stop. We start stripping our bag off, stripping our jacket off. They were going to run us down anyway. We were hauling bags with Books of Mormon in there. I'd probably carry, I don't know, probably 8, 10 of them every day.
Yeah.
And they were going to run us down, and they came up on us. And I want to say Heslington laid one dude out cold, just knocked one dude out. And then out of nowhere, I start wrestling one kid and take him down. And I'm just expecting a shoe to hit me in the face. And this big dude out of nowhere, he's like 6'3", 6'4", 250 pounds, just comes up and grabs a couple dudes by their shirt collars and runs them off. He walks us across the street to the other side, walks us all the way down past them so that they wouldn't come over there. And he's like, why are they coming after you guys? We're like, well, we're missionaries. And he's like, oh, okay. I could have guessed that, and he walked us up to where our appointment was, and we went up there and taught. But we ran into those kids several more times, and I don't know if they were too drunk to remember what happened or, but we never had an issue with them ever again, So, and I remember Heslington was so scared I was going to get moved. And I was like, no. So we walked right up to the mission home after and talked to president. And he's like, well, do they know where you live? Is it an issue? Cops going to be involved? And we're like, I don't think so. We're just defending ourselves. And he's like, all right, be smart. Let us know. And nothing ever came of it. So,
there you go.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Every story I hear in regards to people running with the NEDs, I still cannot believe that I was fortunate enough to never have. I had a few of them that would talk to us and or they'd throw like little pebble stones from distances to like try and hit you or whatever, and never had such an interaction. And I guess I'm grateful for that. So let me just say that. But Dustin, that was an epic story. So thank you for sharing that one. My gosh.
Sorry. Yeah, I have dozens I could tell you. Udi would always be like, don't worry about getting hit by a rock really hard because they can't throw. Now, if they kick you, you might be in trouble because, playing soccer over here, they can kick pretty well. With either leg, they can kick you. But yeah, we'd have rocks thrown at us all the time. I can remember, especially in Edinburgh, rocks would hit like above the doorway or next to us. Like I never got hit with rocks, but yeah, they would throw them at us and stuff. But we would always carry candy. I had some companions that were so good at diffusing. They would just get kids to chill out. And I always tell my boys the story. We were in Edinburgh. I was with Bushnell at the time, but this little kid riding a bike, missing his front tooth. He had these big bottle cap glasses on. He had like a fifth of like Scotch whiskey, some kind of whiskey. He couldn't have been 8 or 9 years old unless he was just really small for his age. But he was cussing at us, calling us mongrels. And I remember looking over at Bushnell and being like, dude, where are we? This 7-year-old kid's drinking whiskey, cussing at us. And I just couldn't believe it, but yeah, I think about, stuff like that all the time. It was funny. Loved it.
Oh yeah. I think my first interaction when I was with Jack is we were GQing on the high street in Peterhead, and I looked over and there was a kid that couldn't have been 10, just smoking a fag. And I was like, where the heck am I? So I can relate for sure.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
So talk about your time in Dundee and remind me your companion's name one more time.
Ryan Beatty.
Beatty.
So,
right.
So if I can tell you about Elder Beatty, Elder Beatty is probably one of the most intelligent dudes I've ever met. But he had this weird hipster attitude where it's almost like he was playing a game where he didn't want anybody to think that he was smart. It's almost like he wanted people to underestimate him so he could surprise them because he was brilliant. He struggled a lot in his early part of his mission. I think trainers and companions, he didn't have the most hardworking dudes. And there was a couple times where President was like, "Hey, I think you probably might need to go home." And he recommitted himself, rededicated, and from his his year mark on, he just turned a corner and was fantastic. And when I got to Dundee, I was so excited because I knew that this was probably my last stop, that I was going to finish there, and I was excited to work because on my year mark when President pulled me in, he was questioning, asking things about, hey, like if you got called to come into the office, would you want to do it? And I was upfront with him from the get go. I didn't want to be an AP. I didn't want to take missionaries home. I didn't want to send them to the train or the airport. I just didn't want that part of the mission experience. I was close to some guys that ended up, going home early and for whatever reason that was, and it broke my heart. I didn't want that part. I just wanted to stay out there and work, and I felt happy as long as I was serving. I felt happy, and so President talked to me about that. So I knew I was never going to go into the office, even though it's funny. I've had a lot of people reach out to me and talk about me and Gavin Snow or Gavin West. His middle name's Snow, but me and Gavin had this rivalry, I guess, that people talked about that I didn't really know about. Um, and I've had people refer to me as the AP that never was, and I never saw myself as an assistant. I never thought I was good enough. I because I had Snow was Udi was, Gavin West was, like Giddings was. I loved Giddings. I should have talked about Giddings when I was in Inverness, but Giddings was one of the Czech elders that didn't get a go, and I loved him. He was a fantastic AP. I just never put myself in that same category with those guys. So I never thought that was there. So maybe somebody else knew about that and I didn't. I don't know. I just wanted to go out and teach and that was my thing. So we're in Dundee and we're working. We're working hard. And Beatty was cocky. We were sitting there and when I was in Urban, that's when Hillam came to the mission and took all our cars because we had like 40 something cars. We had the most cars of any mission on the planet. And Hillam comes over and when they were talking about all of the baptisms, because it's like Manchester was baptizing like 88 convert baptisms a month, where the Scotland Edinburgh mission was only doing like 11. And so we're sitting in there and Hillam's like, I can tell you why, because all your missionaries are driving around, why people are walking on the street or riding public transport. You guys need to give your cars back and you guys need to start using public transport and walking. So everybody's cars, except for areas where there wasn't good public transportation, went back to the mission home and then they either sold them or got rid of them, whatever they did with them. So there was one car that was sitting down at the mission home and Beatty was cocky enough to go up to President. He's like, hey, what's the record for discussions in a week? And I think it was like 37 or 36 at the time. And Beatty's like, I bet you we can do me and Cluff will do 40 plus if we get our car back. And President's like, okay, but you're going to do that 3 consecutive weeks. If you could do it for 3 consecutive weeks, I'll give you your car back. And so Beatty's like, it's on. So we went out and St. Andrews was in our area and we'd go down to St. Andrews and we'd get into the dorms and we weren't supposed to and we didn't know this till after the fact. So it wasn't like we were being disobedient on purpose, but we weren't supposed to go proselyte on the dorms, but we went down to St. Andrews and we had a teaching pool of like close to 40 people. I mean, we were killing it down there. There was a mass number of Chinese immigrants in Dundee because they were going to the University of Dundee. And they were all children of families that had multiple children. So because of their healthcare system and their government structure, they had to leave the country to go get educated somewhere else because their family couldn't afford it in China. So they immigrated to Great Britain, and a lot of them were living in Dundee and they were going to the university there. And so we were teaching people all over, but we wouldn't even take a P-Day. like Udi would get up with, or I mean, not Udi, Beatty would get up to that Cluff, get ready. We're going to work on P Day. And I'm like, when are we going to shop? He's like, we'll buy food on the street. Let's go. And we went out and we worked on our P Day all day. Like we did not take a P Day for 3 weeks. And we taught our last week, we taught 47 discussions. And I know we got some criticism. People thought we were just, making stuff up, but we went out there and President got us that car back and we were cruising around and teaching. And now he was like, you guys have got to teach at least 35 plus. I think it was 35 plus, 30 or 35 plus to keep that car. And man, we worked our tails off and had a good time. And he was with Delv, Nicholas Delv. You guys talked to Delv yet?
No.
You got to get a hold of Delv because that guy's a stud. He was fantastic. I never got to serve with Delv. Always wanted to. Beatty trunked him out, and Beatty was a funny guy because he had a camcorder. He had a video camcorder on the mission. And the first day I get there when he picked me up from the train station, we went home. I got back to the apartment and our beds were pushed together in our room. So our 2 twin beds were right next to each other. And we got in there and I went and put my stuff up. Well, he went in to use the bathroom, closed the door. So while he was in there, I moved my bed back to one side of the room and he came out of the bathroom. He's like, He's like, this is our comp unifier. We're sleeping right next to each other. And I was like, no, I said, I'm not comfortable with that. And he's like, well, you're going to get comfortable with it because this is how we do it. Me and Del did it this way and Del was okay with it. You're going to be okay with it. So I was like, all right, so we put our beds back together and he's like, now lay down on your bed and look at the ceiling. And I lay down on the bed and look at the ceiling. And on the ceiling was a life-size poster of his girlfriend in Gilbert, Arizona. and she was a really pretty girl, by the way. Really. And I mean, I probably had cornflakes by this time, but she was a really pretty girl. And she was up there on the ceiling. And I remember being like, Elder Beatty, do you think that's appropriate? He's like, hey, President knows. And I was like, well, the president knows. I guess it's all good. But she was up there and he was like, that's what, when we go to bed every night, he's like, I'm working hard so I can marry something like that right there. So that's the goal, Cluff. That's the goal. So he would do quirky things like that.
Jeez.
Well, that first night we're together, he like pulls up the camera footage of Delv going into a hypo. He was a diabetic. So he crashed. And when Beatty was trying to wake him up, he was pushing him and he got that little diabetic, like sugar slurry that you can put on their teeth or get in their mouth to kind of bring them out of it. Well, he put that on him and then was pushing him, trying to wake him up. And I guess Beatty like kind of slapped him on the face and Del full on punched him, like hit him up, just boom, and hit him. And you see the camera fall to its side and you could hear Beatty like freaking out, like, hey, Del, let me go, like he's got a hold of him. And then Del got off him, went to the bathroom, closed the door, like put water on his face, like cold water on his face, and got out and came back out and acted like nothing had ever happened. And so when Beatty showed him the fit, he told Delv about it. And Delv didn't know anything about it until he showed him the footage because he was denying it. Like, no, that didn't happen. He's like, yeah, it happened. Here you go. So, we were together for 3 months and we taught like crazy. We baptized 4 investigators in that area. It was fantastic. We had last story. If you guys are okay with it,
you keep rolling. I love it, Dustin.
Hey, you're doing great.
So we have it's I believe a Monday morning. We have a zone leader seminar in Edinburgh. And we had figured out that there was an express train from Dundee with limited stops to where we could get to Edinburgh in like under 90 minutes. So the meeting was at 8:00. Normally missionaries would leave real early and get down there. Well, Beatty had this figured out to a science that we were going to catch the express train at like 6:15, 6:20, and we would be to the station and get to the mission home before 8:00. So we've been having problems with our alarm clock. So we called the district leaders and said, hey, call us at this time in the morning and wake us up so we can get up. Well, we set the alarm. I wake up the next morning with sunlight coming through the blinds. I look at the clock. It's like the train leaves at 6:20. It's like 6:05, 6 o'clock. It's right. We have 20 minutes to get there. Beatty calls a cab to come get us. Because we were out of miles. We were over on our miles with our car. So he calls a cab. I go in and our shower head was busted on our shower. And so it was just this continuous stream of water that was coming out, and our hot water heater didn't work. So it's freezing. We don't know why. It's freezing cold. We jump in, jump out, get ready. The cab's there. It's like 6:10. We have 10 minutes to get there. And I'm running out the door, and Baby's like, Cluff, get back in here. Close the door. We got to pray out before we go. And I'm like, we're going to miss the train. We're not praying out. We can pray on the way. And he's like, no, kneel down. We're praying. And I'm not trying to be blasphemous or sacrilegious, but he offers this prayer, and I got to imitate him. But he goes like this. He folds his arms, and we're kneeling down in the doorway, and he goes, Dear Heavenly Father, we are so very upset about the circumstances of this morning. Damn that clock. If it has a soul, send it to hell. And bless it if we get there on time. Amen. And I was dying. I fell down on my face and was just dying.
Oh my gosh.
I'd never experienced that. He was so ticked at that clock that he was going to pray and tell Heavenly Father. He was upset about it. But I mean, one of the funniest experiences in my life that I can remember to this day. I've told my wife that story, family members, kids. I mean, it was hilarious. But we made the train, got there on time. We ended up coming back. You know how they had the radiators on the wall. So that Dundee flat had this green couch up against that wall for as long as I can remember. When I was a young ZLC in Inverness and we went there for our first Tri-Zone conference, that couch was there and that radiator was behind the wall. Well, in some time, it had got bumped and fallen off the wall. Well, the little copper tubing that came out of the floor that fed the radiator, the hot water, had broke and had leaked all that hot water into the floor. So our hot water heater was just pumping water into the floor and it wasn't going into the shower.
Oh my gosh.
So we learned that it had fallen off and it had just been sitting out. And now how long it had been on the floor behind that couch, to this day, I have no idea. But the gentleman that came and fixed it after, so I was getting ready to go home. We had come by with my parents to visit them. My parents came and picked me up and we toured around for about 10 days. And we went and saw the apartment and the guy was there fixing the radiator the day we went and saw him. And I was told later that they ended up teaching that guy and baptizing that guy that came and fixed the radiator. So
that's cool.
I mean,
that is amazing.
Just the coincidences and how it worked out. I mean, Heavenly Father really has a plan. Really has a plan.
Oh my gosh. Oh man, this has been so much fun, Dustin. Do you have any good memories or specific memories of the Wilkinsons that come to mind as far as your experience with them as your mission president and mom?
Oh yeah, they were so good to me. Sister Wilkinson was so sweet to me all the time. I mean, I would just cry to her, and she would just give me a hug, and like I know she probably wasn't supposed to, but she would give me a hug all the time, and we were their boys. You know what I mean? Like, he was good to me, but he was firm with me. President Wilkinson was really firm, and I remember one time in a zone leader seminar, there was a lot of talk about when I got there. We had what was called the standard of truth. It was our number sheet that we would track all our discussions and everything on. And then by the end of my mission, it was called an ensign to the nations, is what I believe that the sheet was called. And they were talking about tracking the amount of time that missionaries were spending at members' homes a week because they felt like missionaries were just lounging at members' houses, and it was an issue. And the zone leaders in the seminar, the question was kind of asked, what do you guys think? And so our criticism was, why are we going to put another thing on a sheet for these guys to lie about? And Elder Tyler was there at the time. I was there. I believe I was with Hanson when we talked about this. And I remember a comment was made by a missionary. I'm not going to say his name, but he said, if they're going to lie, they should just go home. And I can tell you that first 6 months, that first 3 months of my mission, I could have easily went home. And I can tell you, I wouldn't be near as successful as I was then, as I am now without my mission. So that bothered me that he was like, they should go home. And I was like, wait a second, we're not encouraging dudes to go home. We're encouraging dudes to be honest. And that needs to be the mindset. And President Wilkinson interrupted me and he just slammed me. I mean, fist of cuffs, like on the table, boom, like slammed me about my conduct. And he talked to me after and we fixed it. But I remember thinking like I shared an opinion. I was passionate about it. President criticized me. It was a good growing moment for me, like in learning from a real leader. Cause I thought he was fantastic. I loved everything about him and his wife. They were supposed to be there when I was there. Another time I was in Irvin. We had our tri-zone conference right before Christmas, and the conversation came up about, can missionaries watch movies on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and Boxing Day? And there was this real debate out there about watching movies and what we could do. And President said, because missionaries wanted a rule, and he stood up at the pulpit and he said, I'm not going to make a rule for missionaries to break. I'm going to employ what Joseph Smith said about teaching you correct principles and letting you guys govern yourselves. Because if you feel like if the movie is going to bring about good feelings and it has the spirit and it's good, then watch it. If it doesn't, don't watch it. And I remember thinking like, man, that's a real leader right there. Rather than set a hard, fast rule, like this is what you're going to live by, he said, we've taught you correct principles. If it's praiseworthy, if it's wholesome, if it promotes good things, watch it. If it doesn't, don't. And I remember thinking, man, I just wanted to be like him in so many great ways. He was so fantastic. Still is. I mean, keep in touch with him a little bit, but he is. They do have a Facebook page for the Wilkinson era from 2000 to 2003. That's pretty strong. A lot of people are on it on Facebook. They get there, and my wife, for my 40th birthday, she went around and got like old missionary companions, friends, coaches, people that I've been around for my entire life. And she did like a 40 clips in 4 minutes. She did. And she put the Wilkinsons on there, and she reached out to them and got them to do everybody did video, and she just clipped it all together. And one of the best presents I've ever been given. And the fact that Udi was on there and Heslington was on there, a lot of those guys, and President Sister Wilkinson, I was just huge tearjerker for me. Awesome experience.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, I love all of that, Dustin. And the thing that I'm most excited about is I hope that once this is published, you will share this video on that Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can tell you from my own experience, my cold message to you and not knowing you from Adam other than the connection to Scotland, it'll mean a lot to have a lot of those missionaries that are on that page introduced to the S.E.M podcast from you. So with that being said, is there any other missionaries beyond your companions you've named? I've written down a handful of your other missionary friends. Who else do you want us to work on to get them on the podcast in the future?
I don't know. You guys have had so many good ones already. I mean, have you guys had Aaron Jones already? You have, right?
I don't think that name. I don't think that name rings a bell. But let me look real quick.
Welsh elder Aaron Jones that had the guitar that went around and sang. He did a lot of remixes and mashups with his guitar.
Oh yeah, Aaron's been on. Yeah,
Aaron's been on. Whistlecraft would be somebody I think would be hilarious. I think it was it Mark Burnell from Oregon? Burnell, Burnell.
Ryan is what I got.
Ryan Burnell.
Is that right?
Okay. Yeah, I think so. Because you want to talk about a funny dude. We were eating in Pizza Hut one time, and there was a slippery when wet sign, and we were walking out, and he turned around and he goes, "Watch this." And I didn't know what he was doing, but he slipped and fell on purpose. And when he hit the ground, he like slapped the ground with his hand, and act like his head bounced off the ground, and people were freaking out. And he was like, he just kind of got up and was like, "Oh, like it's a little wet there," like. And just like knee jerk reaction type stuff that he did that was so funny.
My gosh.
My first tri-zone experience in Dundee, he was in Dundee. And when we entered the flat to stay there, there was probably 20 plus missionaries staying in that apartment that night, in that flat. And we walk in, and the Dundee flat, the toilet was like on a little platform in the bathroom next to like a podium sink. And he's sitting on the toilet with the door wide open. He has a Scotland beanie on with his white shirt, like pants around his ankles, just sitting there. "Come on in, elders. Come one, come all." And I mean, I walked in being like, "Where am I?" And that night we played Uno. And did you guys ever play Uno Pint, where if you lost a hand, you'd have to drink a pint of water, and then you just keep playing? And if you went to the bathroom, you were out. Like, that was the worst night of sleep I've ever got in my life. I would lay down and get comfortable because we were sleeping on the floor. All junior companions had to sleep on the floor. What about you guys know Elder Castle, Ian Castle? Have you guys talked to Castle?
I've heard his name, but he has not come on. No.
Castle, he had a companion. Me and Yudi went up to Orkney. That was in our zone, but wasn't in our area. And they wanted us to go up and check on them and check out the flat. I guess they'd been in the flat for 20 plus years, and they wanted us to evaluate the flat and see if they needed to move out. And we got up there and stayed with Castle and Summerfield. They were together in Orkney. And you want to talk about they were both English elders. They were hilarious. And Yudi and Castle got the beds, and me and Summerfield are in sleeping. Summerfield got the couch because I was the youngest. So they put the blanket off on the ground where I could sleep on the ground. He's on the couch, and then he draped the whole blanket over him. And then I got a little bit of the blanket on the ground. Well, their mail slot in their door was missing. So it was totally gone. The front door, there was a hole this big in the mail slot. And outside there was this street light. Well, they were teaching this lady that was having like early onset, like dementia, Alzheimer's. And she would do the weirdest stuff to him. So I wake up in the middle of the night. I thought I heard something, and I see this hand like reach through the mail slot, reaching at the doorknob, like trying to open the door. And I'm like bumping Summerfield, and I'm like, "Elder Summerfield, wake up, wake up." And he wakes up and sees her hand, and her last name was Bowick. He's like, "Sister Bowick." And you see this hand like get pulled out of the door, and you can watch her like through the window. She runs past the window. Castle wakes up in the next room, jumps out the window. Castle and Summerfield are chasing this old lady down the street to get her back to her house because she's going crazy. I mean, something out of a horror movie. You see this hand like through the door I was freaking out. I'm like, we're on Orkney Island. I'm going to die on Orkney Island. Someone's going to break in and kill us. Orkney Island. So yeah, Summerfield, Castle, those guys were awesome. Nicholas Delve, definitely that guy. He was great. Brock Hansen, you guys had Brock on yet?
No, we haven't.
Dude, Brock's a stud. He's probably one of the greatest friends I have in my life. And I mean, even though we don't stay in contact very well, he's been super supportive of me and everything I've done. He's fantastic. He's still in Richfield, Utah. There. Last time I talked to him, he was a bishop. So, guy's excellent. Bushnell would be awesome. I would love to hear him. Lindley, if you could get a hold of Lindley, he was fantastic. There's so many funny elders. Actually, I just looked in my tea book the other day. Whistlecraft was so hairy that he waxed his back, and he put a piece of the wax section in my tea book. So now it's so old that other pages are starting to the wax is working its way through the pages, so they're like stuck together in my tea book. Yeah. He was he was a walking rug. He was the hairiest dude ever. And
oh my gosh.
He'd always do the Chewbacca sounds. He was so funny. Yeah. Loved my mission. It truly was one of the greatest, if not the greatest experience of my life. Like I have so many blessings from it. again, everything that Udi said was true. I struggled. I was a baby. I know it. I'll admit it. I struggled that first couple months, but after that, when I found out why I was there and what I was doing, I got after it. Elder Dale Levesque would be great too. He's down here in Gilbert. He was there. He was in Urban with us. Fantastic guy. Yeah, a beautiful family, wife and kids. He's killing it, working hard. So
what was the last name?
Levesque. It's French Canadian.
Oh, I see it. Okay, it's on my list.
Yeah, Levesque was great. I'm gonna forget somebody. So the guys that are watching, I'm sorry if I forgot you. I apologize. So.
Well,
thank you guys for doing this.
Oh man, I was just gonna say, like I said, share it, tag people. I mean, if you are so inclined, we would greatly appreciate it. And the invitation is open to everybody as we're talking here. If people want to reach out to us, they can email us, SEMpodcast@51spylaw.com, or go to 51spylaw.com. That is our website. And you can click on the contact form at the top and fill it out, and we will find a time to get you on the schedule like we did for Dustin tonight. So thank you so much for making time for us, Dustin. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys. Honestly, if I can tell you what you're doing right now is solid gold. It's made me reconnect with guys and remember awesome experiences that I forgot about, that I didn't record in my journal. I feel so blessed, and it's such a pleasure. Thank you so much. I'm grateful.
Yeah. Well, like we said, this doesn't happen without participants like yourself. So we are very grateful for you. And last and not least of all, we want to express to you our love for you. We truly are grateful that you're our brother in Scotland. This is a huge family web of people that enjoyed the unique nature of what Scotland is. And that's why this is, I think, more enjoyable, is the fact that you can sit down and reminisce on people, places, things, NEDs, everything in between that makes you smile just a little bit more than sharing it with someone who has no idea what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And so again, anyone who's listening that wants to participate, Dustin, you can give us a vote that this is definitely an experience that brings joy to your heart and makes those memories come back all the more. So thank you again. We really appreciate your time tonight, and know that your schedule's busy, but we can't do this without you, Dustin. So thank you.
No, thank you. Love you guys as well. Honestly, Bonnie, Scotland, love it.
Okay to that. Okay. All right. We'll say cheerio to you, Dustin. We'll talk more soon. All right.
Thanks, guys. Keep doing your thing.
We will do. Thanks.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.